So it's probably not the news you wanted to hear coming back from the All-Star break if you're a Spurs fan or a Victor Wembanyama fan like myself. He's my favorite international player, and I think he's going to be the best player someday in the NBA. But it's just devastating news. A blood clot, as you can see in his right shoulder. Out for the rest of the season. Thank God that the medical staff for the Spurs caught this before the games resumed. Because imagine if Victor Wembanyama had played at least 5 games after the All-Star break and the blood clot got worse and it would have required missing next season, and there had been a lot of uncertainty about Victor's future. So thank God the medical staff caught this sooner rather than later, because if it got worse, and let's just say they didn't discover any issues until the summertime, and it got to his heart area, then his career might be over as we speak. Now, some people compare this to the Chris Bosh situation, but with Chris Bosh, he had the blood clot in his heart area, and that's what caused him to retire early in his career. So yeah, it's just a tough blow for the Spurs. I know right now they're 24 and 31, and you just got De'Aaron Fox. You were probably excited to see how Victor and Fox were going to fit together with more games played, and they might have been making a push for the play-in spot. But to be honest, it might be a good thing rather than a bad thing. I say that because you still got your first round pick. You still own Atlanta's first round pick. So going forward, you see what you have with your current roster, you look at your strengths and weaknesses, then you go into the offseason and upgrade the roster once again. Let's not forget, they had an awesome offseason. They drafted Stephon Castle, who looks like a potential all-star player. That is his ceiling, in my opinion. But even if Stephon Castle never reaches that ceiling, I think defensively, he's a menace already. He's fearless at the rim. And he fits right alongside Victor and with the timeline that the Spurs are trying to build here. And then you have your sharpshooters in Devin Vassell and Champagnie, who are fantastic shooters. Champagnie has found a role for the Spurs. And I think as long as those guys continue to get better, build their confidence, and learn how to play with Stephon Castle, the sky's the limit. And De'Aaron Fox as well. That's why I think, losing Victor, yeah, it's tough. But at the same time, they get to build some chemistry together and go into next season with some more experience and to rep up to make a potential playoff run next season. And let's not forget the leadership they brought in this season with Harrison Barnes, an excellent vet, an NBA champion. You brought in Chris Paul, who is helping guys like Stephon Castle get better at the guard position. I'm sure De'Aaron Fox is going to learn something from Chris Paul. And even if he doesn't re-sign with the Spurs next season, I think his leadership, his value is priceless. And it will help the Spurs franchise going forward to get better as an organization and as a team. And if you look at the win total from last season, they've already exceeded that from 22 to 24, and we're in the month of February. So if you look at it from that perspective, the Spurs are playing with house money. If they decide to make a playoff push, try to get to the playing game, and they fall short, or they get in, and let's just say they surprise some people, they get to the 8th seed, they lose in 4 games to the Thunder, no shame in that whatsoever. But you get that experience with your young guys, and you bring back Victor next year, playing with Fox, playing with Harrison Barnes, you're playing with Stephon Castle and Champagnie and Devin Vassell and Sohan, who's been really good defensively. The Spurs are doing all the right things here. And even if you don't make the play-in or make the playoffs, and you go into the draft and you have a top 15 draft pick or top 10, you still own Atlanta's first round draft pick. You can trade one of those draft picks for, a lower first round pick or multiple picks for this year and next year. Or you find an impact player who can fit along the timeline of Victor and De'Aaron Fox. So the Spurs have a ton of options here. They did a great job retooling this roster already. When you had Victor the first season, you're like, okay, how can they add more complementary pieces? And they've done a great job by adding Barnes. Like I said, they drafted Stephon Castle. Vassell has been really good this year. Champagnie is another knockdown shooter. So I think the Spurs just take your time here. I think they're still 2 or 3 seasons away from being championship contenders. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I think they're going to be contenders sooner rather than later, because the upside of Victor is just through the roof. And I think, in 2 or 3 seasons, he'll be either winning MVPs or in the top 3 for MVPs. So, yeah, I mean, the Spurs, it's tough to see Victor out, but thank God the medical team caught this sooner rather than later, because I would hate to see a situation where reports come out in the summertime that he's got a blood clot in his heart, and then it's like, man, his career is over, and that would just be devastating for the NBA. This kid's phenomenal. He wants to play basketball. He wants to compete, and that's all you want from a superstar player and a guy who could be the face of the NBA. I think the NBA needs to embrace Victor Wembanyama. They got to embrace the international players, because they're here to stay, and they're going to keep winning MVPs. They're probably going to keep winning championships, making deep playoff runs, and Victor is just getting started. And one last thing I want to touch on is, should you hire Mitch Johnson as your full-time coach? He's been the assistant coach with Greg Popovich for the past 5 years. He's 22 and 27 as an interim coach. So obviously he knows the Spurs system. He's been here for a while. And you want to build stability with your franchise. Obviously Victor is the cornerstone piece. You've got Castle, you've got Vassell, you've got Sohan. Those are my core pieces. Of course, De'Aaron Fox, but I'm talking about the young guys under 25. I think you should go ahead and hire him. I know it's tough because Greg Popovich has won multiple championships, but you have to be concerned about his health. He's not going to coach the rest of the season, and they're not sure about his future going forward. So if I'm the Spurs organization, maybe hire Mitch Johnson. He's been here for a while. He is showing that he can coach 22 and 27. I know it's under 500, but this is a young basketball team. And maybe being a full-time coach would give him more flexibility, more leverage, and having more options out there to coach his game plan instead of just following Popovich's game plan. Not to say it's a bad thing, but new blood and you fit along the timeline with the young guys and you just go ahead and build from the ground up. So we'll see what happens. But again, thank God Victor's okay and that the medical staff caught this right on time, because who knows what would have happened if they found out late in the season or in the summer. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the news of Victor Wembanyama. What should the Spurs do going forward? Should they tank? And should they hire Mitch Johnson as their full-time coach? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.